So we're going to talk about desert rivers at this stop. The term itself, desert river, sounds like a contradiction to many people, but in reality, most deserts have a wide variety of rivers within them. There are two basic kinds, essentially. They can be separated into two groups. There are the so-called exogenous or allergenic rivers. These are rivers that are sourced in wetter areas and then flow into the dryland setting. Okay, so a good example of that would be the Rio Colorado in the southwest United States. It's sourced in the relatively wet Rocky Mountains and then flows through increasingly arid part of the southwest United States. Another example would be the Nile River, arising in the sort of wetter parts of Ethiopia and then flowing northward through increasingly arid terrain. And the other type of dryland river are the so-called endogenic or endogenous dryland rivers. Those are rivers that arise within the dryland and flow through the dryland and usually terminate within the dryland, although in some cases they might join one of the allergenic or exogenous dryland rivers along their course. And we stopped here on the banks of the Rio Chubut, in the middle of Chubut province. We're between Los Altares and Las Plumas, and you can see the Rio Chubut is flowing, despite the fact we're in a very arid part of the province. And that's because the Rio Chubut is another example of an exogenous or allergenic dryland river. It gets the vast majority of its moisture from snowmelt in the foothills of the Andes, and then it flows through the desert. It's losing discharge downstream through evaporation and seepage into the bed and banks, but nonetheless it's persistent enough to get all the way to the Florentino Ameghino Dam, farther east from here. It's a major supply of water through the desert into the east coast. And if we just have a look at the image here, this shows the flow regime of the river. So on the y-axis we've got discharge in meters cubed a second, and along the bottom we've got the flow record from 1945, I think that says 43, to April 2007. And you can see that it rises and falls each year. The rise is with the snowmelt, and then it drops away during the summer to a low point, and then will rise again. It peaks during the summer and then drops away during the autumn and winter as things start to cool down and freeze up, and then with the next spring snowmelt it will rise and peak again during the summer and then drop down to very low levels. This is the flow record from upstream of the Florentino Ameghino Dam, and obviously the flow regime downstream of the dam is somewhat different because the flow is regulated. The dam closure just refers to when the dam was put in or completed sometime in the 60s. But that's a different story, which we'll perhaps talk about at a later point. So anyway, that's something on the Rio Chubut, an example of an allergenic river. We'll stop over the next couple of days and perhaps have a look at some of the endogenous dryland rivers, those that arise within the dryland and terminate within the dryland.